Okay, so we're going to be going over how to balance these chemical equations. We're going to do it the math way for this one, and then on the next one we'll do the Cheerio activity, okay? So for this one, on the first one, we are always going to start out by writing our graph where we have, or our chart where we have reactants on the left and products on the right, and then we go through and we just list our elements. So we have hydrogen and oxygen. So the first one, on our reactant side, we have 2 as a subscript, so that tells me we have 2 hydrogen. And on our product side, we have H2O, so that means we have 2 product hydrogens. Our oxygen, we have O2, so that means we have 2 oxygens. And then we have H2O on our reactant side, so we only have 1 oxygen. So our hydrogens are balanced, but our oxygens are not. So the lowest number that we could make both of these, so they can, do they both go into 1? Do they both go into 1? No. Can they both go into 2? Yes. So we can make this 1 into 2 by multiplying it by 2. Now, that doesn't just change my oxygens. Now, remember, when you don't have a number, it's a 1. So we have 2 times the 2 hydrogens, which makes that's 4. We have 2 times the 1 oxygen, which makes that 2. So my oxygens are now balanced, but my hydrogens are not. So they can both go into 4. So I'm going to change this coefficient from 1 to 2. And now I have 2 times the 2 hydrogens to get 4 hydrogens. And I've got 4 on both sides and 2 on both sides to balance that equation. Now remember, when you have no coefficient, it's a 1. So like on your test, when you're inputting it into the blanks, if you don't have a number there, then you would just put a 1 there, just like in math. Like if you have an X, you know that there's like an invisible 1 beside it. All right, on number 2, we're going to do the same chart with our reactants and our products. We have hydrogen, potassium, phosphorus, oxygen, and potassium. So H, P, O, and K. I have 3 hydrogens here and 1 hydrogen here for a total of 4 hydrogens on my reactant side. On my product side, I have 2 hydrogens here. For my phosphorus, my P, I have 1 phosphorus there, and over here I have 1 phosphorus. On my oxygens, on my reactant side, I've got 4 oxygens here and 1 oxygen here, so there's 5. On my product side, I have 4 oxygens here, 1 oxygen here, so that's 5. For my potassiums, I have 1 K on my reactant side and 3 on my product side. So my hydrogens are not balanced, so let's try to balance those first. 2 and 4, the lowest number they can both be would be 4. So I'm going to come over here. So in order to make this 2 a 4, I would have to multiply it by 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, but it also multiplies by that 1 oxygen. So now I have 4 oxygens here plus the 2 oxygens here. So I have a total of 6 oxygens. So my hydrogens are balanced, my phosphorus are balanced, my oxygens are not balanced, and my potassiums are not balanced. So I could go and try to balance my oxygens, but it would be a lot easier to balance my potassiums. So we're going to go to this one first. So always just try to do the simple ones first and try to knock those out first. So the lowest number that I can make both a 1 and a 3 would be 3. So in order to make this 1 a 3, I'm going to have to multiply it by 3. So 3 times the 1 subscript here is going to give me 3. It's going to multiply by this 1 oxygen to have 3 oxygens here, plus the 4 oxygens here to give me 7 oxygens. And it's also going to multiply this 1 hydrogen. So I'm going to have 3 hydrogens here, plus the 3 hydrogens here to get 6 hydrogens. So now my potassiums are balanced, and my phosphorus are balanced, but my hydrogen and my oxygens are not. So I'm going to have to rethink this. So whenever you get to a problem and you think, okay, well, I could go like to see if what's the lowest number that these could both be, and I could try to make these the lowest number, or I can just kind of work backwards and see if I can change some of the things that I've already done to see if I can make that work better. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to just completely ignore that 2 that I put there to see if I can make those hydrogens into 6 hydrogens, because I'm starting out with 2 hydrogens on my reactant side, or my product side. So remember, we started out with 2. So if I just ignore the 2 that I've already written there, is there any way that I can make those 2 hydrogens into 6 hydrogens? Well, I can do that by, instead of putting 2 here, I could multiply it by 3, which would be 3 times 2 would give me 6, and 3 times 1 would give me 3, plus my 4 oxygens here, which would give me 7. So sometimes you kind of have to work backwards and rethink some of the steps that you've already done in order for you to be able to balance it. All right, on number 3, we're going to make a graph with our reactants and our products. We have C and S. On my reactant side, I have 1 C. On my product side, I have 1 C. On my reactant side, I have 1 S, and on my product side, I have 2 S's. So my C's are balanced, but my S's are not. In order to have the lowest possible number, they can both go into 2. So I'm going to multiply this 1 by 2, and I'm going to write that 2 there. So that means 2 times the subscript of 1 is going to give me 2 sulfurs, and everything is balanced. All right, moving on to number 4. So this one is difficult, but we're going to do it together. So I have RB, I have N, and I have O. On my reactant side, I have 1 RB here and 1 RB here, so it gives me 2 RBs on my reactant. On my product side, I have 2 RBs here. For my nitrogens, I have 1 N on my reactant side and 2 N's on my product side. On my oxygens, I have 3 oxygens on my reactant side, and I have 1 oxygen on my product side. So my RBs are balanced, my nitrogens are not. The lowest possible number that I can make both of these are 2. So I'm going to put a 2 right here, which changes my RBs because I have a 1 RB here times the 2, which is giving me 2 RBs, plus the 1 RB here. So now I have 3 RBs. That 2 multiplies the 1 nitrogen, so I have 2 nitrogens. And the 2 times the 3, I now have 6 oxygens. So my RBs are balanced, my nitrogens, or my RBs are not balanced, my nitrogens are balanced, and my oxygens are not balanced. So I can go back and let's try to balance my oxygens. So I've got, because they're going to be the easiest. If you ever have a 1, that's going to be the easiest thing for you to balance. So try to start there. So whenever you've got 6 and 1, the lowest number they can both be is 6. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to multiply all of these by 6. So now I have 6 times 2 RBs, so I have 12 RBs over here. And 6 times 1 oxygen, and I have 6 oxygens. So my RBs are not balanced, my N's are balanced, and my O's are balanced. So the lowest possible number that I can make 3 and 12 is 12. But I would have to multiply that 3 by 4. And if I do that, if I put a 4 here, it's not just going to change the RB. It's going to change the N and the O. And we don't want to do that because those are balanced. But I have this lonesome RB over here that's a 1. So in order for me, so I've got a total of 3 RBs over here right now. But if I'm just looking at these 2, I need 10 more. So I can put a 10 right here. And I have 10 RBs plus the 2 RBs right here for a total of 12 RBs. And everything is balanced. Okay? All right. Number 5. This one is probably the hardest one that you're going to do on your worksheet. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you I'm not going to test you with this equation. Okay, so you can completely mark that one out. I'm not going to test you on it. So I'm just going to give you the answers for it. And if you got them correct, awesome. If you did not, it's okay. I think it's a little bit too advanced for 8th grade science. So you've got 2 C6H6 plus 15O2 yields 12 CO2 plus 6H2O. All right, so flip your paper over. On number 6, we have PbOH2. So let's go back and talk about when we have parentheses and a subscript. That 2 is going to go into, it's going to be distributed to everything inside the parentheses. So that means you have 1 Pb here, 2 O's, and 2 H's. But remember, when we do our chart, we're not going to keep our compounds together. We're going to separate them out because they're not over here together. So don't put these two elements together. So we have our reactants and we have our products. We have Pb, we have O, we have H, and we have Cl. Now there was a typo. This L should be a lowercase l, not an uppercase L. It is chlorine. All right, so on my reactants, I have 1 Pb. On my products, I have 1 Pb. On my oxygens, I've got 2 oxygens right here for my reactants. On my products, I've got 1 oxygen. For my hydrogens, I have 2 oxygens here plus the 1 oxygen here to give me 3 oxygens. Or, I'm sorry, 3 hydrogens. On my product side, I have 2 hydrogens here. On my reactant side, I have 1 chlorine here. And I have 2 chlorines on my product side. So my PBs are the same, my oxygens are not. So the lowest number I can make 2 and 1 are both going to be 2. So I'm going to put a 2 in front of the H2O because that's the only place that I see an oxygen on my product side. It doesn't just change the oxygens, it also changes the hydrogens. So 2 times 2 is now 4. Then 2 times 1 is 2. So my PBs are balanced, my oxygens balanced, my hydrogens are not, and my chlorines are not. And remember, we said we could do balance hydrogens, but because chlorine has a 1, let's start there because it's easier. So we've got a 1 and a 2. They can both go into 2. So I'm going to turn this 1 into a 2. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a 2 right here. Now it doesn't just multiply by the Cl, it also changed my hydrogen. So I've got 2 hydrogens here plus the 2 hydrogens here for a total of 4 hydrogens. And it changed the 2 times the 1 chlorine to a 2. So now I've got 1 Pb on both sides, 2 oxygens on both sides, 4 hydrogens, and 2 chlorines, and it's balanced. Okay, number 7. We are going to do our reactants and our products. So we have K, Cl, and O. And I'm going to pause the video real quick and I want you to work these out. So these are the answers for 6, 7, and 8. 8 is kind of a medium difficulty level because you did have to go back and change your H and your I, and you have quite a few different steps on here. So for your 8th grade science exam, I would expect maybe 1 or 2 of these type of problems. All right, on your number 9, this is a word problem. They're super simple though. All you're doing is you're identifying your reactants and your products based off what you read. So it says when crystallized C6H12O6 is burned in oxygen gas, O2, carbon dioxide and water is formed. So that means this and this react together, and it yields this and this. So writing your new equation, you have C6H12O6 plus O2 yields CO2 plus H2O. Well, you've already pretty much done this equation. It was very similar to number 5. So you can balance this one out on your own. And we're going to move down to number 10. It's the same thing. You're just identifying the different ones, and I'm going to do that and then give you the answer. So after you just identified your reactants and what they yield, which would be your products, you're going to do your chart and you're going to find that they are already balanced.